Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm
Good
just looking at
morning.
all the names up there, waiting to
Good
make sure.
morning.
And someone does not have their muted, so you might want to go ahead and mute that if you're not muted. That way we won't get the background sounds and all of that for everybody. But good morning and welcome to our instructions for completing the 2023 KECSAC survey. I know some of you are old hands at this and know exactly what to do, but we just always like to give out some information about if there's any updates or anything that we saw last year that was a problem. Um, so we've got somebody that's saying they have no sound, Katie. I don't know.
We're getting it on this end, so sometimes you need to drop out and rejoin.
Charlene, did you get that? That you might want to go
Oh,
out and come back in if you're not having any sound, because I think everyone else does. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started till we can be respectful of everyone's time. Again, this is just a very short overview of how to complete your census survey, and it's very informal. Please feel free to ask any questions along the way. You can do it in chat or you can unmute. We always like to everybody be able to say, well, ask at any time. So it's very informal. And Katie has put out there the census form and the link to the census instructions. You should have also gotten an email from KECSAC Now that had that in it. If for any reason you're having an issue with the link. And then also, I just wanted to mention about the writing before we get started talking about census. You should have gotten in the KECSAC Now this about the writing, and it is, we were accepting applications for October 27th through December 1st, and the winners will be announced on December 8th. So if your students did a writing, make sure that we get those by Friday. So we'll start looking at those and reviewing those if they were participating in the writing contest. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. It'll probably help if you have the document in front of you. It'll just say instructions for completing the 2023 KECSAC survey. And typically, I don't like to read to people, but for this, I think it's just easier if we just go straight through it. And then if you've got any questions, just give us a shout out in the chat room or unmute yourself. So the very first thing, when you look at your instructions, there's a link that you can click on to get to the annual census survey. So there is your link to get you to the survey, because sometimes people will email or call and say, I need a link to get to the survey. So right at the very top there is your link to get to your census survey. The next paragraph, it starts talking about, it says enter 0 where applicable. So please do not enter NA. This is a spreadsheet, so we need numbers. If you do not have a student in that category, you do not need to put any words in there. Just put a 0. That way, that keeps everything uniform across the board for us. And then I don't have to call you or email you and say, did you mean to put 0 there? So make sure if there's a section that it's asking questions to have a 0 on there. Before, these are just some like tips on this. Before you hit the submit button, once you have completed the survey, if you are someone that needs a copy of it, you can go up to where the 3 dots are on the Google form, click on that, and it will give you the option of copy. It'll give you the option of print, or you can download it and save it that way. to get you a copy of it. But once you have hit the submit button, you will not be able, you can email me and I, excuse me, and I can go back and do that for you and email it to you. But once you hit submit, then you will not be able to. Okay, so we got something in the chat real quick. So, Adam, I can send that to you if you do not have that. With the KECSAC membership report, he's asked about guidance on that. Prior to the last couple of years, you all were doing the membership report and emailing that to KECSAC, and we do not want you to email the membership report in any way. We started off this school year, you were, Christine Smith is looking at that for you, verifying your numbers, sending you an email and letting you know what your numbers are, and then comparing that and you all verifying that. So you do not need to send your membership report at all to us. We have access to IC just like you do, and so we can go in and do that. Some of the work that you may want to do is to make sure you do not have any duplicates on your report prior to your December 1 count. Everything should be fixed, but if we're still having some problems with duplicates, then we can work with Wendy at the department and she can help us make sure that everything is syncing and that you're not having duplicate enrollments, because we want our students to just be counted once on our membership report. So make sure you do not have any duplicates prior to December 1. Okay, go ahead and minimize that. Remember that this report is only for our state agency students. You know, we have several programs that are blended programs, and that means that we have programs that serve district kids. This is for our state agency kids. It's a snapshot. It's a 1-day count, kind of like your special ed count. We're doing it on December 1st. It's a snapshot of that day, how many state agency students that you have in your program. We only fund for that. So that's why it's very important that you only count those students. Another, just a FYI is if you have students that have graduated and are no longer in IC, then those students, you will have to email me their information, because once they have graduated, then they drop off of the membership report. So those are the only students that you would actually send an email about. So date submitted, that's just the date that you're going to do the report. So that'll be December 1st is what we're trying to capture, but you can submit it anytime after that. Name of school district, of course, that's just your school district. There's a drop down, our 2 new districts, which is Nelson County and Todd County. You can add both of those. Those are already on there. You'll just do the drop down and click on your school district. The name of your KECSAC program that's on your MOA. Hopefully we are striving to get to the point to where our name, whether we're talking about what's in the directory, whether we're talking about what's on your MOA, what's in IC, that your name of your program should be the same every place. And if it's not, that's something we need to have a conversation about, and something that we need to strive to get every name the same for all different documents. A contact, whoever's doing this census survey, that's whose name will go there, and your email address. That way, if there's any issue, when I look at your information, I can know exactly who I need to be talking to. Your rated capacity of your program. That would be something that you would get from DJJ or DCBS if you're not aware what your rated capacity of your program is. It is also listed in your, because I know sometimes people are like, oh, well, where did I get this? It's also listed in the school directory that each one of you have a copy of. The average length of stay. So we want you to enter the average number of days the students are enrolled in your program. This should include the average of all calendar days, instructional days, weekend days, and non-instructional days. And we give you an example here on the directions that if a student is here from August 1st to August 12th, that's 12 days. If a student is here from January 3rd to January 10th, then that would be 8 days. So your average length would be 10 days. Also, when your program improvement specialist comes and does the interview with you and is there to monitor your program, sometimes these things should coordinate. If you are reporting on here that your average length of stay is 25 days, and then your program improvement specialist comes and does a monitoring visit and you tell her 100 days. So just kind of make sure that we look at all these documents and that we're comparing the fact that they should coordinate if we're saying average length of stay. Instructions for the section 2 are questions 1 through 7, and they are all based upon your December 1 count. That snapshot picture is what all of these questions are based on. Again, we want to make sure that we're only reporting about state agencies' children as defined by the KRS 158-135. If there's any question about that, please feel free to reach out to me or to Christine Smith, either one, and we can help you to make sure that you're counting that. Because we do have a lot of programs that are blended programs, and those students, sometimes people are like, okay, do I count this student or do I not count that student? So if you have any question about that, please feel free to reach out to us. Number of students identified as special ed. So if you tell me you have 10 students and 5 of those students have an IEP, then you would put a 5 there. That's what, that they had an IEP prior to coming into the program. That's what the 5 would go there. If you have 2 students on the next question that you've identified since they've come into your program, then you would put 2 students there. But those numbers should never total more than the number of students that you've told me on number 1. So that sounds very odd to say that, but that has happened, and then I have to call you or email you and let you know. So if you have 10 total students and 5 of them have an IEP, then that's what you would put on number 2. If 2 of them have been identified since they've been there, that's what you would put on number 3. Okay.
Sherry.
I'm sorry, on number 4.
Sherry.
Yes.
Sometimes we get students that came to us that maybe their IEP died between the time that their last school placement and them actually getting to our facility. And to officially get them back in the program, we just do review of records and get them officially call an ARC and get their new IEP up and running. Maybe they went AWOL and they were missing for those days. That has happened several times in the last couple of years at our facility. So would those kids be considered coming in with an IEP, or would they be considered kids that we have now identified? Because the records, they had an IEP, but officially the day they entered my program, the IEP was dead.
Right. So to me, and I can check with the special ed department to be sure on this, but to me, if they have ever had an IEP, they would be in the first group.
So it would not be like if they are with us and we see that they're struggling in MTSS or RTI program is not working, and we have to go through the entire initial evaluation, then that's where the numbers, that other one would come into play.
Right, where you have somebody come in, whether it's you or somebody else that comes in and sits there and identifies that student.
Okay. Just wanted to
As an-
clarify.
All right,
Thank you.
great question. Thank you. Because when we're doing all this, there's always the what ifs. And there's one of those things that I've learned in working in education and all this is just when you think everything is okay, there's always that what if when you actually get out into the programs or dealing with some of our kids, it's always the what ifs. So great question. Thank you for asking. Number 5 is the number of state agency educated only at your program. So if your students are educated there at Adair County, then that is the number that you would put there. If you have some of your kids that go to the high school in Adair County, then that would be broken out from that number, because we're trying to capture the number of students that's actually educated on site versus if they go out to an A1 school. So that's what that question is about. Number 6 is number of state agency educated only in a traditional off-site A1 school. We're trying to capture how many of our kids are going, even though they're enrolled with you, they're still going to the A1 school on question number 6. Okay. Number 7 is the number of state agency educated partially on-site, off-site. Because we do have some kids that for part of their day, they may go back to the high school or they may go back to a different program. So that's why that question is there. We're trying to capture the students that may attend a traditional public school part of the day. So for our next section, which is section 3, and it's questions 8 through 16, these are the questions that are based on a complete year. So from 12, 2, and 21, or to 12, 1, and 22, you're trying to capture the full year. Those dates are not right. It should be from the 22 to the 23 on there. So make sure that you're capturing from 22 to 23 on that. And Justin from Graves County, he does a great job with this. He captures it in 2 different reports through IC. He does 1 year and then does the other year in order to get this. Some people keep in an Excel spreadsheet. Whatever works for you is fine, but you just want to make sure that you're capturing all the students that you served in a 12-month period for all of these next questions. We do not want, and I'm just going to read this because it's very important. It says, do not count duplicate enrollments of the same students, only count individual students. And we give an example. If student A was in your program 3 days during January and left, then enrolled again in March for 6 days, then enrolled again in August, we would only count that student once. We wouldn't go back and forth with that student. That's one student that's been in our program multiple times. So the purpose of this question is to determine an unduplicated count of the number of children served. We want to know how many students you served in a 12-month period is what we're trying to capture in this section. And in this section, we want to know, and I'll just briefly say what each one of these, we want to know if they went to a vocational program. We want to know if they were gifted and talented. We want to know if they were dually enrolled, if they participated in a GED program, if they completed a high school diploma, if they obtained a GED. All of those are questions that we're trying to say, if you had 100 kids, did any of those 100 kids throughout that 12-month period, did they participate in any of those questions Someone's asking, what is the report called? It's called the Annual Census Survey, KECSAC Annual Census Survey. And if someone chats something and I miss it as I'm talking, please just unmute, and that way just go ahead and ask the question. And I'm trying to make sure I see the chat too.
Sherry, what I think she means is, you mentioned Justin, that he ran 2 reports in IC to help get that information.
Mhm.
And I think we're just trying to see what would we look at in IC to help save us the work of tallying.
So you just run your membership report and you select the dates,
It's called membership report.
right?
Okay,
Just like how everybody used to do their own membership reports instead of us doing them here at KECSAC, you just run it from that time frame.
okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll go on to the next page. Again, questions 15 and 16 go right back to what we were talking about. We're just trying to capture what is going on with those students during that 12-month period. Did we have any 18-year-olds leave the program? Did we have any students that were admitted to post-secondary after graduating? Again, all of this whole entire section is for our students for that 12 months. We have some new programs, so you won't have this information. You know, you'll just have this starting school year because your program didn't start until August. So don't worry about, you know, the whole 12 months. Count what you've got from August until December because you didn't have a program prior to that. Okay, instructions for the section 4, questions 17 through 26. Again, we're doing it on the 12 months. And on each one of these headings, it talks about whether we're doing it for the snapshot of the day or for the 12 months. So the 12 months for this one, select assessment method offered. It's a drop down that you can pick 3 or 4. If you want to pick more, that's fine. But we're just trying to identify what you use to assess your students. We have several listed, and then there's the other if it is not on there to where you can go ahead and put that out there. Some people will go in and they'll put everything that they've ever used. Some people will put 3 or 4. So whatever you're comfortable with on that one, we're just trying to find out what it is that you use to assess your students. Question 18, number of students who transition out of the program. We're trying to capture where the students are going from your program to their next program or A1 school. So question A or 18A says go to another PK 12 educational setting or did not go. So all of your kids in that 12-month period, they either went to an educational setting or they did not go to. So that's how the A and B should be answered. Enter the number of students who left the program for these 2 options. Every student who left the program should be accounted for in one of those 2 categories. So all of your students, those 100 students that you serve through that year, should be accounted for in either A or B. Also, again, on 19, students transition out of the program into a PK-12 educational setting. We are trying to break that information down a little bit more. Did they go to an A1 school when they left you? Did they go to another A5 district operated alternative program? Or did they go to another KECSAC program? And when they do the request for records, you should be able to tell if they're going to A, B, or C on that. So we're just trying to track where our students go when they leave your program. The facility type, you know, did they go to a DJJ program? Did they go to a community-based program? Or did they go to Aspire or Western Day Treatment, our two mental health programs. We want to know, again, all of these questions are just trying to capture where our students are going when they leave your program. And there's little information that's typed on this. I'm not going to read it all, but if you have any questions about this, please feel free to email me or call me and we can discuss it too, because our data is only as good as it's reported, and we want to make sure that anytime that we're putting data out there, that it's good information, that we have what's correct. So just shoot me an email or give me a call if you have any questions. On question 21, it says, when students enter the program, this is capturing the students coming to you. Where did they come from? Did they come from an A1 school? Did they come from an A5 school, an A6, or were they not even enrolled anywhere? We're trying to capture where the student came from to your program with those questions. Again, the facility type is the same thing. Of the students who were identified in 21C, enter the number of students who came from each facility. We want to just know, that helps us to say all of our kids are coming from here. All of our kids are coming from a detention center, or they're coming from an alternative program or day treatment. So that way we can know where our students are going and coming from. The next section on 23 is the students leave and do not enter another PK-12 education program. Well, then where did they go? Of those 100 students that you had, did they enter the workforce? Did they go into independent living? Did they enter the military? Those are why we have those questions on there, to just try to track what's going on with their students when they come into our programs and when they leave our programs. 24, the number of students in A6 KECSAC programs for the first time. We would like to know if this is the first time those 100 students that you've had for those 12 months, is this the first KECSAC program that they've been in, or have they been in multiple programs? So that helps, that's what that question is for. Number of students age out of state care while in your program. You know, some of our programs have kids that age out. We want to try to capture that with that question on 25. On 26, the number of 18-year-olds state agency that left their program without a GED or diploma, transitioning to an A1 school. Some of our kids go back to the A1 school and they may already have a GED, or they may have gotten a diploma. If they've gotten a diploma, they can't, but if they've got a GED, they can go back to their A1 school. So we're trying to capture that. We're almost to the end. Yay. Instructions for section 5. It's questions 27 through 34, and the answers are based on the 12 months again. One of the things that we want to talk about on here is if we have a teacher that comes over to your program part of the day, 0.5, then we need to capture that. If that teacher or administrator is there the entire day, then he's a full-time equivalent. So that's what we're trying to capture with these questions. We want to make sure if we've got administrators, staff that are full-time or part-time, and that way, that's what these following questions lets us know. 27 is the full-time certified teachers on 12/1/23. So on that day, how many teachers did you have in your program that was full-time? That's what we're looking for in that question. And there's a sample there that can help you go through that. But just remember, the purpose of the question is to capture the total number of teachers employed at that KECSAC program. 28. So if you tell me on 27 that you have 10 teachers, the question 28 is asking you, of those 10 teachers, how many have special ed certification? So if 8 of those teachers have it, you would answer 10 on 27 and 8 on 28. Or if all of them had, you would answer 10 and 10. Because those questions are connected. And sometimes I'll get like, oh, I've got 7 special ed teachers, but you just told me you had 2 teachers on 27. So that's why I'm trying to make a stronger point about that. 27 is how many teachers is in your program. And we have a question. It says, what if the special ed is only 0.33? Would that count as a full-time teacher? No. If we're trying to capture the full-time people, the part-time people, so if they're there 0.33, just put 0.33.
It's hard when you start 25 minutes into it, and
Yeah.
On 29, it says certified teachers holding an emergency certification. So from 27, those number of teachers that you have, how many of those teachers have an emergency certification? So if you tell me you've got 10 teachers, out of those 10, how many have emergency certification? Is what we're trying to capture there. On question 30, we're looking to see who has national board certification. Several of our teachers in our programs do have national board certification, so we're trying to capture that now. That's one of our new questions on this year's report. 31 is about, do you have any minority teachers? Out of all of your teachers in the program, how many minority teachers do you have? And that is also a new question this year. On 32, the full-time educational administrators. So I'll use Wes, for example, in Hardin County. Wes is over 2 programs. So he should enter 0.5 as he fills out the one report, and then 0.5 as he fills out the other report for his other program, because he is administrators over both of those programs. So he can't be a full-time administrator at both of them. He's a 0.5 at one program and a 0.5 at the other program. If you're over multiple programs, you would be a 0.5 and a 0.5. If you only have one program that you're over, then you would be a 1. Because we get different numbers. This is another one of those questions that we get different numbers on. So just make sure if you're over multiple programs that you let me know that you're not full-time, that you're a 0.5, or if you're over 3 programs, however, okay, on that question. And teaching assistants, if you have teaching assistants assigned to your program full-time, then you would capture them there. If they're part-time, it'd be 0.5. And so we've got, you can leave the quick evaluation. Oh, Katie's giving you some information about the evaluation. And then the last question is educational support. In the educational support, we're trying to capture if you have a guidance counselor, a curriculum coach, a transition coordinator, anybody that doesn't fall into whether they're a teacher, an administrator, or a teaching assistant. If they're working with your program, that's what we're trying to capture in number 34. A secretary would be a support staff.
Sherry, quick
Yes.
question.
Uh-huh.
Where I am one of the classroom teachers, as well as I handle the administrative duties, what do I do for numbers like that? Am I considered the administrator, or am I considered a teacher, or am I half and half? Or
You're a half and half,
okay,
because even though you may be staying in the classroom, and I know, again, this is those what ifs that doesn't fit in that nice little cookie cutter. I know you're handling all the administrators, and I know that you're handling all the teaching, but if you're if you're doing both, you really can't be a full-time administrator and a full-time teacher. So do the 0.5.
okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Great questions. So that's everything that I have. Hopefully, I know that I always talk too fast, and when you can't see yourself, I'm sitting here looking at the screen and I can't see myself. So hopefully I've not went too fast and went over it. But if you have any questions, please unmute and we'll sit and talk about it. Again, we're trying to capture December 1, 2023. It's that snapshot of that day in order to know how many teachers you had, how many students you had. And then all the other questions are based upon how many students you had throughout the year. Somebody had subs on there. I wouldn't count a sub unless they were like a long-term sub, because then at that point I would either count whether there's long-term teacher's aide or a long-term teacher that was subbing. Then that way I would count them if they're coming into your program for one day. I don't know that I would count a sub other than maybe if they were there quite a lot, put them in support staff. So anything else? I'll give everybody time. Again, please, I'm here for you to help you in any way I can in order for us to get great information. So please feel free to email me, call me. Remember if you're somebody that needs the report, to go up to those 3 dots and print you off a copy, or to download it, and that way you'll have it electronically. That's always something that I have to go back and look and say, oh, how is it that I send that to them? And we laugh about it because you do it just once a year. But if there's anything at all, please feel free. And if no questions, then everybody, you all have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year and happy holidays. And I really appreciate you joining. And Katie, if you'll let them know about the ELA credit, I'll let you tell them about that.
Yep, all you guys need to do is click on that evaluation link that I posted, and you should automatically get a certificate sent to you. If you don't, it might be that there's a typo in the email or something, and just shoot me an email and I'll get it right out to you.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks,
Sherry,
everybody. You all have a great day.
Sherry, one last question.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I know we used the December 1 data and for this past calendar year. When is like the deadline? Is it December? Do we have a deadline, or is it as close to December 1 as we can get?
So as long as you get me the information by December 15th, that
Okay.
way I can start working on it before Christmas break. I always like to try to have everybody's, because typically, there'll always be some questions that I have to go back and forth to make sure, like if there's a duplicate on there, if one of the answers on the survey doesn't make sense, I have to contact and go back and forth. So if I can get everybody's information to me by December 15th, and remember, you don't have to send your membership. We pull those here at KECSAC. But if you can get the survey completed and everything by December 15th, that would be great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I know you got lots of going on with Christmas and getting those kids ready for
We do.
So it's great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
And I will leave this up for a few minutes so that you guys can get a chance to click that link.